and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah, and I wanted to welcome all of you today to this week's installment of Monologue Monday here on my YouTube channel. As you can see, I have not had time to cut my hair yet, and apparently I haven't had time to shave my mustache either. I've been busy, getting these videos out to you, so I hope that's an even trade-off. But regardless, for this week's episode of Monologue Monday, I wanted to discuss something that I personally believe not enough people really think about on a recurring basis, and that really comes down to the topic of deciding what companies or what individuals get your hard-earned money, how much of it they get, how frequently they get it, as well as the concept of how your selective consuming can really play a really big role into your wealth in your later years. Okay, so as I said, the topic for this week's episode of Monologue Monday is really a few different things, but generally speaking, it's really going to come down to how you, the consumer, how we, the consumer, really get to a certain extent decide what individuals, what entities, what people, get our money, and how that can play a huge role in, not obviously their success, but your success as well. To start off this conversation, I want to make it clear that, at the end of the day, everybody, anywhere around the world is, for the most part, really, this doesn't apply to every single person, but generally speaking, companies, individuals want to get as much money from you and myself as possible. And reason being is just because, they have a service or a product or a commodity or, a convenience, whatever it may be, that they believe is, very beneficial to everybody. They want to push it out to everybody. They want to get money from everybody. And in turn, this money is going to provide, it's going to provide freedom to them. It's going to provide security for them, not only themselves, but extended family and friends. It can provide, fun, right? It can provide, to a certain extent, happiness as well. So that is the goal that, a lot of people, including myself, right, with the company and service that I provide, we are out basically to provide, whatever service or product that we have in exchange to get money from that. So then we can have, we can have our way, right? We can have the things that we want. We can take the trips that we want. And we can, do whatever other endeavors that we want with that extra money. So now that you know the ultimate goal that pretty much everybody has, even if you're at an employee basis, right? There's obviously the owners and executives take away the lump sum of money at companies. The employees too should hope that their whatever company that they're working for, their product sells, to everybody, so then they can have promotions and they can, have stock options or whatever it may be. So it's not only this rule doesn't really only apply to the owners and executives. It applies to, basically all of the employees as well. So now that we know that the end game, or basically the goal of everybody, is to basically just get money from everybody else, it kind of puts into perspective how we as consumers, how you, the viewer, as a consumer, really have the power to decide who, what company, what individual gets your hard-earned money, like I said previously. And you really have the power to determine basically who gets rich in this world, right? Especially as a combined effort, as your individual purchase might not make a difference, but you and your community's purchases can certainly make an impact, on the outlook, financial outlook rather, of an individual or a company. The direction that I really want to head with this is that I see in media quite a bit that, the individuals or journalists or whatever it may be, communities are upset with a certain company, right? Or a certain individual that, has a company, or, there's so many different articles that in the media that kind of talk about this and how it's unfair for them to get, a certain amount when, other employees aren't, and, all the list goes on and on and on, basically. But the point that I think people don't talk about, or the journalists don't mention, is that the consumer, right, us, my neighbor, your neighbor, your family, we get to really decide to a certain extent what products we purchase, what services we purchase, what goods we purchase, what company that we purchase from, and so on. So basically, where this goes is that if you don't like the idea of these large companies, and like I said, this only works to a certain extent, and I'm going to kind of get into that later. But if you don't want these large companies, these executives benefiting all this extra money from labor that isn't fairly compensated and so on. The decision really comes down to us as consumers, right? To continue to fund these endeavors, to continue to pay for these a certain amount of individuals to get very, very wealthy, while a bunch of the normal workers, so to speak, kind of get by, kind of on a check to check basis. We at the end of the day have the power to determine which of these companies we support, uh, which of these goals, these companies' goals, we really want to financially support. Now, the reason I say that this doesn't apply to every situation is that, as consumers, there are certain things that we don't really have too many options with, right? A really good example that I can think of immediately are apartments and living and so on in modern day America, where you can't really just go move to a new city and say, where are the apartments for $200, right? That's a homeless shelter, right? It's non-existent. It's not here anymore. It used to be back, however many decades ago, but it is the days of $200 rent and reasonable rent for the most part are somewhat behind us, I think. So what this really leads to is you having a few different options, and some are a few hundred cheaper than the other, maybe a little bit more, but you got to go with that one, right? And the company that owns those apartments is going to benefit from you, and you get a little bit more of a deal than you would if you would have gone elsewhere. But that's really, like I said, the example where we don't have complete freedom like we would if we were talking about something like Starbucks coffee, for example, where no one is forcing you to purchase that, right? Versus rent, your hands are sort of tied for this in certain cases where you're going to need a place to live. You can either have a box or your car, and in my case, I don't even have a car, so it would be a box if I wasn't in an apartment. So versus Starbucks, where I can kind of pick and choose if I want to pursue that financial endeavor. Now, this talk of us as consumers, deciding kind of who we want to have our money, right? Who we want to make successful financially and give freedom to and security to, also translates our way as well. We have the choice, right? If you have a certain amount of money, $100, for example, you can choose with that $100 to pursue some goods or a service or whatever it may be from someone else, and contribute to their financial well-being. But you can also contribute to yours as well. So we really get a choice to decide where that money goes to work. Does it go to work, and does it benefit someone else's idea, someone else's service, whatever it may be, or do we hold it back and do something with it on our own terms to benefit our financial well-being, not only now but in the future as well? There's a couple examples that I want to kind of discuss when it comes to taking the extra money that you could have spent on non-essential expenses and then holding it back to yourself, whether that be in a savings account or investing. And one of the examples that really hits home to me is that there was a time where it must have been a couple years ago at this point, where I wanted to develop and release my own beverage to the market, right? So my own design, my own taste, my own feel, my own look, and so on. And after contacting many beverage and condiment development companies, right? Companies that are strictly, they strictly exist to help people like me and larger companies develop new tastes, new ideas, and then help them release to market. The conclusion basically was that in order to take a product start to getting it on the shelf somewhere to see if people like it would be about an endeavor of about $80,000 to $100,000. Now, this is a lot of money, right? You can get houses for this type of money, but the point that I want to try to make is that if you forego the non-essential expenses, right? Starbucks, for example, and buying clothes that you don't need and shoes that you don't need and toys that you're going to break and you're not going to need. If you forego that for a time being and you take that money and put it into yourself, like I said, you're either investing or you're putting the money into a savings account to just have it lump sum secured. Down the road, you could actually pursue your own product, right? Your own beverage or in this case, a beverage, but your own company rather, to make money that way. So that's another example where I think foregoing providing money to all these other companies and individuals that are already out there, foregoing that in exchange maybe for making your own money down the road might be something that you would like to pursue as well. Now, I'm certainly not saying that you should, eliminate all of your expenses as much as you can, because that's relatively unreasonable, as it might not make sense either. There are certainly companies out there that have a good vision, right? That if you read up on what their goals are as a company and how they treat their employees and so on, you might feel good, and it might be a good experience to contribute to them and keep them going on their mission. But generally speaking, I feel like there's many individuals who kind of spend money that just really doesn't need to be spent, and what they could do is, like I said, forego that, right? Give that a break. Give the non-essential expenses a break. Take the money and put it into yourself, right? Invest it into yourself. You can either like I said, you can save the money and do something big with it on your own, whether that be a company or just getting, a property, or I mean, it could be anything, right? It could be even investing into, your friend's company that's a startup. There's so many different ways that you could use that lump sum of money. And another way would be investing, right? To build your wealth for the future as well. So there you have it. Those are a few of my thoughts on, how we as consumers really have the power to make decisions on who we decide, gets wealthy in the future. Is it going to be someone else? Is it going to be a company? Is it going to be a few individuals, or is it going to be ourselves? So if you are an individual who's looking to cut back on non-essential expenses and use that extra money to benefit your own financial well-being, the services that I provide here at AFA fit exactly that. I take all of my clients' financial information and dissect it to a point where we can decide where we can cut corners financially and take that extra money and actually do something that's important with it. So if you have any questions with my personal finance service, I've left my email and a link to my company website in the description box below. As always, thank you so much for your time today, and happy financing.